Gracie Jiu Jitsu rocks. Welcome to the Gracie Jiu Jitsu Rocks podcast, a podcast dedicated to Gracie Jiu Jitsu and all things Gracie, including self-defense, competition, anti-bullying, women's self-defense and empowerment, nutrition, and most especially, the people involved in Gracie Jiu Jitsu. This podcast is for the average Joe. It's for anyone who practices, trains, teaches, or just loves to talk about or hear about Gracie Jiu Jitsu. We'll explore the lives of Gracie Jiu Jitsu practitioners, how they got involved in the art, and what effect it's had on their lives. So buckle up and enjoy the ride. Welcome to episode 147 of the Gracie Jiu Jitsu Rocks podcast. As always, I'm your host, Marty Josie, and thanks for listening. I'm really stoked for today's episode because joining me is none other than the legendary Master Rickson Gracie. So, been wanting to interview Master Rickson for a long time, and so grateful that I was finally able to do that. We'll get to that in just a moment, but first let's do our Jiu-Jitsu quote. And that is, Jiu-Jitsu is for the protection of the individual, the older man, the weak, the child, the lady, and the young woman. Anyone who doesn't have the physical attributes to defend themselves. And this is from Grandmaster Elio Gracie. All right, as I was saying, I've been wanting to do this for a long time, and the time finally came. Couldn't be more stoked for it. We get into a lot of different things, starting with some of the old times in his life, fighting in Japan, fight prep, demonstrating the Bushido spirit to the Japanese people. Talked about several passages from his book, how his jiu-jitsu and fighting philosophy has changed throughout the years. Talk a little bit about cold exposure. Definitely get into the subject of breathing, as it's very important for both of us. Talk a little bit about what his life may have been like had he not done jiu-jitsu. We get into his thoughts on modern BJJ, why he feels like cooperative training is better than the beatdown or smash environment in the training hall, what inspires him, and kind of what's next for his life. So I don't want to get into it too much here. I'll save that for the interview. After the interview, make sure you stay tuned for the Make a Difference, Make an Impact segment. And without further ado, let's talk to Rickson. All right, I have the distinct honor and pleasure of speaking with Master Rickson Gracie. So welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you, my friend.
It's a huge honor for me. I've been a fan of your work for many, many years, and I actually met you way back in 1996. I went down to Orlando, actually I think it was Tampa, and it was going to be a 2-day seminar, and then at the end of the 2 days you offered 3 more days for intermediate, so I was able to stay and do that. So it was really cool. It was right after, a year or two before you had done the fights in Japan, and you'd shared some stuff about that, so it was a really cool time. And then in 2016, almost 20 years to the day, I got to run into you again up in Master Pedro Sauer's school in Northern Virginia. So it was really cool because I had the picture of us together from 20 years ago when I was there in 2016. I took a picture of us holding that picture, so pretty cool.
But, that's great.
Yeah, so I want to speak to you a little bit first about some of the kind of old times and some things from your book, and then we'll kind of work our way around to present day and kind of what you have going on, if that's all right.
Okay, yes, no problem.
All right, so first of all, what really struck me about your book, Master Rickson, is not only is it filled with a ton of great stories and glimpses into your life, the life that you've led, but what really stood out is the vulnerability you shared. Many people hold you up as an almost unhuman figure who, one of the toughest men in the world, might be immune to human vulnerabilities that most of us have. But you were really open about being human, about the failures, the stresses, the disappointments, and the challenges that you've been through. And it was one of the best things about the book, in my opinion.
Thank you. I felt like in order for me to be relevant for myself was to talk about my life in a very in-depth, but not leaving anything like out. Like, I don't want to play something I'm not, if I don't. So I try to show my natural ability to deal with problems and in a very human way and grow from that. So it's not about mistakes. It's about how you take the experience and grow from that. So I feel like I'm not ashamed of things I did, which I don't believe was perfect, but was a great experience for me to grow. So, and that's important for me to state in the book is exactly what you said. I'm not a superhuman. I'm just a human being who try to follow my path, So I was making some steps upwards, some 2 steps backwards, but always at the end, capitalizing on the mistakes and growing from there. And that's, I feel like, was a big part of the book in terms of the success, the achievements of the book was because I didn't hold back. And a lot of people who don't not exactly related to jiu-jitsu or to the martial arts community, they can get something from the book as a human experience. So I'm happy to have done this and the way I did.
Yes, and I really applaud everything you said about that. And I do think that's one of the things that people can relate to the most. When you were writing the book, what was that process like, and did it bring up anything unexpected? And did you find it easy or difficult or somewhere in the middle to write the book?
No, for me, I mean, I have my dear friend, Peter Maguire, who is a good friend and scholar, and we've been talking about doing this book for at least 10 years. But it's never, the opportunities never rose, and I was just postponing that process, that project. But with the COVID and with the great opportunity as offered to me by the publishing house, we decided to do it. And then the process was like a very easygoing process because first my friend know me and we know each other and he know part of my history. Second was like just a way for me to just organize my growing process. And as I started doing the book, I felt like everything happened to me has a reason and has I should have a choice, something to choose about it. And I made good choices and was like, I'm very happy about the way I start to remember my tales and things about myself, which make me feel like from the first moment I start to get conscious about my position in life, my family tradition, I start to represent in my mind, I have a goal. I have like something which never changes. And the book was good for me to just relate to that path, relate to that road which never been changed. I evolve, I kind of modifying things to achieve what I want to do. I add things, I subtract things. But my life motion was always in the same direction, and I'm very pleased, and it was a pleasure to talk about this and rethink about those things in the book.
Yeah, it's great to go back and relive memories as you organize those thoughts, I'm sure. But I want to ask you about a few of the specific parts of the book or stories. First thing is you tell the story of your dad offering you two gifts if you lost your first match, and one gift if you won. And I think you did this to illustrate the value of competing, and that it doesn't matter if you win or lose. Can you talk a little more about this and the impact it had on you and your life?
Yes, at the moment, the information I get, because the point was my first competition. I was 6 years old, competing in a bracket of 7 years old, because 6 years old bracket. So my father just created the Brazilian Federation of Jiu-Jitsu, and was the first official tournament of this federation. And it was always this kind of action and the buzz about it. And I like to compete. Dad, please let me compete. I want to go too. And he said to me, yes, if you want to go, I will give you a gift. If you win the tournament, if you want to compete, I will allow you to do. If you win the competition, I give you a gift. If you lose the competition, I give you two gifts. So what this kind of gets me in my mind was the fact, if I lose, my father's not going to be upset with me. He was not just feel like. So it was a great way for him to tell me he was on my side no matter what. Because a lot of parents those days and always, when they see the kids get a talent for soccer or football or basketball, they start to rely, to putting a lot of expectations on the kid. And eventually, you go watch your kid playing soccer, and he missed the goal, and you say, wow, man, you should make the goal. Why you did, why you did. You should kick stronger next time, make sure this. So the kids sometimes make the interpretation of, wow, I didn't please my dad. I tried my best, but my dad was not exactly pleased with, and I disappointed my dad. So sometimes that information can get to the kid in a way where I'm not fulfill my dad's expectations. And then I don't want to play soccer anymore. I don't want to do this. So my dad makes sure, regardless of the outcome of the fight, of the event, he will feel like, I'm not upset with you. Actually, I'm going to give you two gifts. So he just states that, not to make me feel like I need one more gift or I need to lose to get two gifts. Because no one, in the end of the day, don't want to lose. But if I lose, my dad's not going to be upset with me. And that was a great support in terms of how to conduct a lifetime achievement. Because he was not there to see me compete once. He was there to make me feel like engaged for life in that kind of situation. So the first important thing for him to do as a father is to be at my side regardless of the outcome. And I feel like that's the way he was doing to prove that. And I always do that exactly the same with Kron and Rickson and my kids in terms of when they facing some challenge. I was always there to support them, not to be expecting them to win or having a positive outcome.
What a great story, and what a great way to show support. It's so important, especially with kids, how they're introduced with something or to something. And so many times today, kids are pushed so hard in one way or the other way. And, it can really put a lot of pressure, a lot of stress on them. And I think that's just a brilliant way to show your support and say, look, either way, it's not about the outcome. It's that you do your best, you try hard, and have fun. So I love hearing that.
Yes, that was a great strategy.
So you talk also about kind of your journey and the way you think about jiu-jitsu and fighting. At one point in the book, you share after the match where you had punished a Carlson Gracie Jr. student, I don't remember the name, you decided you never wanted to fight like that again, fighting with emotion instead of with reason. And you stated jiu-jitsu needs to be more like chess. You also at some point even said, at some point fighting becomes a transcendental experience. So can you elaborate a little bit about this and how that you were kind of evolving in your philosophy of jiu-jitsu and fighting?
Yes, because in my life, I was at one point exposed to jiu-jitsu. I was understanding my position in the formation of a family legacy, and I felt like I was an athlete. I was good in what I was doing, and I'm very positive about that. But the fact, I was competing all the time and trying to represent all the time. That's put me in a situation where I had to be at my best. Was not a time for me to just be wasting energies. And I felt like if you get it, because everything in life, in order for you to achieve it, has some kind of challenge. No matter if you're in a martial arts universe where you have to deal with an opponent, no matter if you want to buy a car, no matter if you want to get a girlfriend, no matter if you want to just graduate yourself, anything you like to achieve is not exactly a battle, a physical battle, but it's a way for you to do martial arts, because you need strategy, you need emotional control, you need, visualization, you need a good sense of timing and connect with the elements. So I started getting the picture where being a martial artist was not exactly being an emotional human being. You have to play more the rules of engagement in a martial arts universe, which are those I just mentioned. You cannot just go and be emotional. So when that is specifically when I was fighting against a Carson student, just after my brother Hoyle being robbed and lost for another Carson student, I was upset more with what happened with Hoyle prior me than actually. I have no emotions against my opponent, but I want to make him pay for the robbery, for the situation just happened before with my brother. So I was just emotionally involved and tried to him to pay for this. So I was doing just chokes in front of the face and try to make like he feel discomfortable and agony and try to get panic. So I tried to bring him claustrophobic feelings for my opponent, which translates in anger and hate and things which evolves in the emotional aspect. And I felt like that particular day, I was my worst fight because I was taking too long to win. And then I realized the time was almost over. The 10 minutes of the regular match time was over. It was 7 minutes already. And I was just doing stupid things, trying to just harm and not in a very bad way, but it's just trying to put pressure and try to be emotional about it. And I realized that was not exactly take me nowhere. The guy was tough, and Carson guys are very tough and can resist punishment and very resilient champions. So I immediately, before the fight is over, I regroup myself and said, I'm doing mistakes here. So I kind of readjust myself and put myself in more in a rational mode and could capitalize and submit him in less than a minute from that point. But it was my longest fight ever in Jiu-Jitsu tournaments. It took me 8 minutes to submit this guy. So one more time I realized in order for you to be precise, you cannot allow yourself to get involved with emotions. So it was a great step for me to become more precise in terms of how to strategize and accomplish things in a very reasonable, strategical, with emotional control, with a proper breathing, because that's the way you have better chance to achieve, no matter if it's fighting somebody or achieve happiness. You cannot be out of control. So I started adding one more layer of confidence in my game if I was precisely approaching the matter with a rational, intelligent strategy. So that was a great process for me to grow in terms of become the best I can be.
That's great. I think so many people, when it comes to fighting, whether it be out in the street, in a bar, or in the ring, lead by ego and emotion. And like you said, that's the opposite of a real good strategy, where you're focused and you're confident and you're logical and emotional control and breathing control. So I love that. I also, it's got to be crazy, the stories of when the crowd would start counting your matches down. That had to feel weird to you. Tell me what it was like being in there and people counting down, like the expectation is within this many seconds or minutes you're going to submit someone. What did that feel like?
Yeah, those years I was just on top of my game in terms of being an athlete, and I was a favorite in every tournament I compete in. And people acknowledge that by soon the fight starts, they start to counting 10, 9, 8. And if I didn't submit the guy on this 10 seconds, they will start again, 10, 9. So it was not a pressure for me, because at this point I felt like I had to raise above all the external influences, and I was not exactly trying to do this for the crowd. I was very active in my game. I was very dynamic, so I was not stalling or making strategies to make like a slow cook. I was putting 100% gas and stress to the opponent to make the submission as quick as possible. So my strategies to fight was very, very much extreme in terms of putting all in at once. And then submissions will pop very quickly because the pressure and the actions are very precise. So was something I feel comfortable with, and I always use the crowd on my favor. But I also like the crowd, for example, in Japan, when the crowd is against me, I also use this in my favor, because I felt like I could not be impacted by that kind of emotion. So better you are in terms of what you do, more are irrelevant, those kind of external emotions. So I was keeping myself very much focused and completely in a mission. So those interference doesn't bother me too much.
Wow, that's amazing. I was just thinking before you brought up Japan, when you were just talking about the crowd counting yours down 10 seconds, that had to be strange for your opponents too. I can just imagine how it affected them with the crowd. But as you said, if you're that focused like you were in Japan, even with the crowd against you, you can be laser focused and not even let it affect you at all, right?
Yes, because I was dealing with much more emotions than just the regular average Joe. For me, I mean, not average Joe, but an average competitor. For me, it's never been about rules of engagement. Can be any rules, can be any weight division. So I was never expecting to fight somebody in my weight division. I was always bigger. So it was not about time limits. So all those unpredictable situations I make myself comfortable with give me an edge, very, very special edge against my opponents, because they don't prepare themselves spiritually to deal with this kind of discomfort. I was visualizing every day for myself, because for me it was representing a legacy, representing the Gracie Jiu Jitsu, and this was bigger than my life. So I was expected to jump into any situation which is appealing to me, regardless the outcome, regardless if I'm gonna die trying. So it was for me, it was a comfortable living in hell. And for others, they expect other things. They think more like a sport, or for me was much bigger than sport. Was my life, was the way I feed my kids and represent my family. So was not exactly time for me to quit. I didn't I see myself quitting. I see myself passing out and having my brother throw a towel or something. But quitting was not an option for me in terms of, I prefer to die than quit if we're talking about how I feed my family, how I represent my jiu-jitsu. So those are big motivations for me to rise above any stressful situation.
Yeah, you said in the book that a big revelation was when you realized that your life was less important than your mission. So is this kind of what you're talking about right there?
Yes, definitely.
Yes. I also liked the way you shared and went into detail about helping Royce leading up to the first UFC. I think a lot of people would be surprised or were surprised when they read to know how nervous Royce was before the first UFC. When seeing him perform, you would think that he was completely confident and not nervous at all. But it was great hearing the backstory and the details of it and how it kind of came full circle, helping him the way Holes had helped prepare you. That really isn't a question. It's just a comment that I really enjoyed hearing that part.
Yes.
You said that winning the Japanese Open was one of the highlights of your life. You showed the Japanese crowd that Bushido spirit wasn't lost on the Gracies. Talk about that for a minute, if you would, and then we'll get into kind of your prep for that, because I really thought that was very interesting when you went away and isolated yourself and mentally prepared.
Yes, going to Japan first time was like first time to fight. I have been in Japan before this event in '94, but for the first time to fight was like a returning the jiu-jitsu, which is Japanese, to the mother country, which is Japan. So I felt like I was not exactly teaching them anything or showing them something they don't know. I was just incorporate some details, polish a little bit the stone, but I bring back the stone and make sure when I finish my first fight, my first tournament, I was clear to say this was like a returning of jiu-jitsu to Japan. I was thank you Conde Maeda Koma for bringing jiu-jitsu to Brazil. And I acknowledge that as like something he did very good for my family. And now my family bringing back jiu-jitsu to Japan to just support and keep growing and keep sharing those kind of technical elements. And that's designed very much positively into the Japanese community. They felt like not only the techniques were back to original techniques are back to them, but also the way I position myself, the way I put myself like in regard to my opponents. I didn't show too much happiness, too much celebration after every victory. I was serious. And that's pretty much is a common sense for them in terms of the samurai. When the samurai fights somebody, they don't celebrate, they don't make like big parties about, because they can fight next day and die. So fight for them is a very serious matter, and it's an honorable, respectful matter, no matter if you win or lose. And consciously, that's what I did. Another important thing I did, which I didn't know about it, was dress white. All the samurais, they have a white clothing before they put the armors to fight, to engage in a battle. And I was using always a white trunk. And it's another a good sense of which I didn't know. And so for different reasons, the way I speak for them, the way I acknowledge my opponents and stuff, they felt like it was not just returning a martial arts, it was just the returning of the spiritual aspect of the samurai, because they start to see me as a true warrior in terms of bringing respect, bringing honor, bringing sharp techniques, and was all good for me. And was just a beautiful representation of my work.
I lived in Japan for about 8 months, and I really loved it there. And like you said, a very honorable and respectful people and culture. And I'm sure you won them over with your fighting skills, but even more probably with your respect and honor that you brought and the way that you showed respect to them. So I thought that was really cool. And I'm sure you won a lot of fans through that as well, acknowledging their culture.
Yes, because when you deeply engage, like what I do is martial arts, and martial arts is a fully engagement, a fully confrontation with the opponent. But with this being said, they use respect, they honor this confrontation as something which has physicality but also spirituality. So they feel like it's not about the outcome of the engagement. It's how you portray yourself. You put yourself in an honorable position, and by value that they start to bring in a concept which embraces lifestyle, embraces battlefields, embraces education, culture, tradition. So when you respect all those elements, you become part of them. So even though I was a foreigner, I have a lot of what they call Bushido, which is the code of honor and the code of living of the samurai. And they start to feel like I was a living samurai. And from that point on, it was crazy because they see me as one of their own. They try to, sometimes on the street, the guys want me to just touch their kids' heads or they treat me like almost a god, like unbelievable respect and it was a very special feeling for me.
I bet. And you made a lot of great points there, but one thing that stands out about your mindset, a lot of people go into a fight and just the physicality or the physical part in their mind, I'm going to try to beat this person up or whatever, the sport of it, the physicality. But the samurai and then you as well, think of it as all encompassing. This is mind, body, spirit. This is everything. This is war. And you said, I'm willing to die today if that's what happens. I thought that was really, really interesting.
Yes. I think the engagement has to be the potential of the engagement has to be a full potential. So you don't engage to quit. You don't engage to just start to look into yourself and say, now I'm tired. I'm not sure. You start to get in doubt. So you have to put yourself in a mental position, in a spiritual position, in a physical position, which when you engage, you commit your life on it. It's like when a fireman goes to save a children in a roof of a house in fire. He fully commit. He can die, he can do whatever, but his mission is saving the kid. So for me, it was the same thing. My mission was just representing the legacy. And everything else was just a combination of spirituality and emotional control to make sure I will achieve my goal or I will die trying with no resignment, was just a positive force forward.
That's amazing, man. I love hearing that. Another difference is with you and a lot of, I guess, your average type fighters is a lot of fighters want to be around as many people as possible. A fight camp, a lot of other fighters leading up to a fight, but you elected in these fights to go off and isolate with just a couple of your close family members. Tell us a little more about that, because I really find what's interesting is I saw the two Japanese fights. A friend of mine way back when the fights occurred sent me VHS tapes, and I saw the fights, thought they were great, or the whole events. And then later the documentary came out, Choke, and you got to see, more of the backstory. And then your book came out, which told even more of the backstory. So I thought it was really cool, the layers of uncovering that I got to find out about this whole prep and those events. But tell us a little bit about isolating yourself and the mind, body, and spirit, the cold exposure, and the things that you incorporated.
Yes. For me, it was not only going to Japan and isolating myself, was living my life in daily basis, thinking about any opponent, any enemy, any adverse, or can come to my door anytime. So for me, it was a matter of being comfortable with that expectation, with that situation which could lead to that. And I have to be comfortable on my seat, waiting for the moment either somebody going to make a call or either something going to happen and I have to represent. So for me, it was not something I introduced to myself going to Japan. But once I scheduled my Japan's fight, I try to make something to be comfortable. And that state of mind has to be combined with preparation, physical preparation, emotional control, and also spirituality. So in order for me to be physically prepared, I arrived there like almost 1 month prior to the fight. Nobody did this at the time, getting there so early. So I was going to the mountains in Japan and spent 25 days in the mountains, running, cycling, doing a lot of cardio, and also swimming on the rivers, and being kind of training every day with my brother and my training partners. So it was just like something which are very much keeping myself prepared to do the fight. I also do meditation and breathing to keep my mind comfortable with the solitude and the peaceful mind, and also my spirituality, which in regard to hope, to faith, to surrender, capable to really accept my death. And then I spend all my time preparing myself. In the very last day before we leave back to Tokyo, I normally have like a fire experience, which is making like a pile of wood, put fire on, and from the first light I put it on, I allow the wood burn, and the big fire comes out, gets the most intensive aspect of the fire, and then the fire starts to diminish and diminish. I don't put more wood on it. It's just one time, and it starts to diminish, and I focus on my sight on the fire for the whole process of from the first light to the very final moment where the flames finish and touch just the ashes. So I spend the whole process watching the fire grows and finish. And with that process, I realize nothing can be endured forever. And if my time of living is gone, I accept as the fire to be just part of the energy and dissipate with the energy. So I was focused spiritually at the very last day to be comfortable and living myself the inexperience God reserves for me. So that way, combining with my little woodcraft every day after the training session, I will isolate myself from my friends and my family and stay on the garden or even though in the garage or something, working with a woodcraft, doing a little tatting or a little carving to just put myself focused on that moment and be peaceful, cleaning a bamboo or something. And I was very much passionate about my routine on the mountains because just touched me in very aspect of my life, either in the practical, physical aspect, which my brothers training partners are very tough and keep me on my toes. And my emotional elements, which is like my anxiety, my visualization, my claustrophobic feelings, whatever happens, I will deal with breathing and mind process to be positive about it. And also in the spirituality, which I allowed myself to be hopeful, to be faithful, to accept death, to surrender, my energy and putting all my life in terms of achieving my energy. So it was a great composition, a great harmonic growth for me in preparation for the fight. And nothing can be more, like, I could not be more prepared than the way I achieved myself trying, So was nothing I could do to improve myself in terms of feeling better. So I'm very blessed to have this kind of protocols to follow.
Yeah, it sounds very powerful on so many levels, and I like how the final thing was that fire ceremony. It sounds amazing in how much you got out of it and the meaning it had for you, and just kind of a way to close it all out and be ready for anything. You mentioned swimming in the rivers. In the documentary, it shows you doing that and super cold water. So, do you? I know it's gotten really popular these days, and I certainly do a lot of cold immersion. But do you do that
Yes.
As a practice these days? If so, how often? And what's that like for you?
Yes, I don't do much at this time anymore because for me, the ice preparation was always not about micro traumas or physiotherapy aspect. It was always emotional. And because for me, it was not just putting myself inside a bath, ice bath with my head out. For me, it was just using the snorkel and putting my head under the water and the frozen water, because it's completely different when you feel the water, the cold water, just from your neck down. It's discomfortable, it's a little uncomfortable, but you can handle a different process. When you put your head under the water, but not in one like with the snorkel. Without the snorkel, you're just gonna dive for a second and then you come up. That's hard, but it's not too hard. When you sink yourself with the snorkel, the diving snorkel, and stay under the water, your brain feels like gonna burn. Your eyes, everything is discomfortable. You start to feel like the agonizing feeling of frying your face. And that kind of brings some kind of claustrophobic feeling. And that's what I was looking for, to deal with my breathing and regulate my breathing to feel very common, very, very normal breath. Not, but
Yes.
So was when I find myself in that kind of comfortable rhythm to breathe under that uncomfortable circumstances, I was already ready to leave the water. I don't have to stay in the water and prove anything. I was just about to control my emotions under this kind of infernal circumstances. And that's kind of gives me some kind of mental strength to be able to handle that kind of discomfort, and able to control my emotions and be able to regulate my breath in a very much calm and organized way, was give me the sense of being in charge of the worst agony I could put myself through. And that was just mentally very good, spiritually great, and physically was was also great. So when I lived that kind of experience, I was feeling like on top of the world, unbreakable, unbeatable, and completely, confident to achieve the outcome.
Yes. That's great. When I started doing like ice baths and cold immersion, like everybody else, it is shocking when you first get in. And at first my goal was to just be able to endure it, start using the breath and get through it. Because if you can breathe through that, what can traffic or anything else do to you, right?
Yes.
But I went from there to being able to actually meditate within the ice bath and get my heart rate down to the low 50s or upper 40s and really find that still, calm, peaceful place, and that's a whole different experience. But I do have to admit, I occasionally duck my head, but I never have used the snorkel and did what you described. So I'll definitely have to try that and take it to another level.
Yeah, you're going to love it.
I can't wait.
Or hate it.
Both probably, right?
Yeah.
So you mentioned breathing, and I can't speak with Rickson Gracie without discussing breathing for sure, because you're known for that. It's such a big part of your life, and I'm totally into breathing as well. So you've said that Orlando Connie, had a huge impact on you, and I believe that's where you first started learning about your breathing. So a few questions about it. What do you think most people fail to understand about breathing would be the first thing?
The first big mistake people do is they think they don't have to learn or study about breathing. They think after get slapped on the butt when they're born and start to cry, they already know everything they need to know about breathing. And they're okay. That's not true. I think like anything else, from driving a car to write a book, to write a sentence, whatever you need to do is a learning process. And breathing, like eat properly, like whatever you want to do, is always a learning. And breathing is so important because after I start to use and practicing, I start to feel like the lungs, the brain and the heart are the only organs who give and receive information. Your brain gives and receives information all the time. Your heart also gives and receives information. When you receive something emotionally, you get immediately contact with your heart, and you get depressed, you get, feeling bad. If you get something physical, you get exhausted. You also feel like you exhausted and you cannot hyperventilate, and you feel like your energy is kind of withdraw. Either for helping your heart to just keeping high performance, to just minimizing your heartbeats, if you needed to relax, to organize like recovery. All those processes you can do by knowing how to breathe with your diaphragmatic muscle, with your diaphragm. The diaphragmatic breathing help you to fill up your lungs in a way, if you not know how to use technically, you never will achieve. So divers, singers, yoga masters, they know how to use the diaphragm very well. And they can hyperventilate. They can not double, but almost double the amount of oxygen intake in every breath. So that makes a huge difference, because you can spend 7 days without food. You can spend 3 days without water, but 5 minutes without breathing, you're dead. So now know how to hyperventilate properly. We will give you not only best functional abilities, but also we will save energy, we will save blood, oxygen in your blood for your brain. So something I start to notice on my practice is, regardless I was very tired practicing, training, trying to choke or trying to sweep or trying to do this and that, very active, by hyperventilate, I still have my brain very fresh to notice details and opinions and be able to be sharp on the mat and outside of the mat. So that's given me a sense of empowerment, which if I was not using properly my breathing, I will be fading away. I will be like making poor decisions, because if you don't know how to breathe, you may even can keep fighting or running, but you're not going to be capable to hyperventilate to the point where you keep running, but your brain is very fresh. Normally, if you're not an expert in breathing, you can keep running, but you're gonna be fading away. You're gonna be almost like halfway. The mind process is just processing halfway. It's not exactly clear, sharp, creative, because it feels like your energy starts to fading. So in that matter, the breathing can help you to keep in a very high level of performance in your heart and also in your brain. Keep sharp, keep clear, keep, aware. And that is a very interesting feeling to feel when you're under pressure, is when you're fully capable to use your resources. And the most effective fuel and the most important way for us to renew ourselves is through a comprehensive, intelligent, technical breathing. Because you can hyperventilate and you never felt like exhausted. You can go forever in a very interesting pattern. So when I discovered that could be like the missing link for my effectiveness, for my clear mind, I become addicted to breathing because that's really connect myself much. I was assessing my brain emotionally much faster, and I assess my heart to recovery, to give my best pace, and a much faster ability. So I was just delighted by using my lungs to enhance my mental process and my physical process. And once you feel that kind of extra advantage, it's just priceless. You become like, and you see today the application of breathing in many different segments. Even tennis, you see the guy, because they know the movement and the exhale has to combine, for you to become not only refreshing yourself and the ability to hyperventilate, yes, but also gain more speed, more ability to move. So the breathing can help you to act better, to think better, to feel better. So it's just a priceless knowledge.
I couldn't agree more, and it certainly has been life-changing for me. And back to what you said when you started, that is what most people fail to, besides not knowing anything about the diaphragm and using the diaphragm for diaphragmatic breathing. One of the biggest misconceptions is it's not that important or it's not needed, because if I don't have to think about it. If I don't think about it, I'm still going to breathe. I'm still going to be alive. Well, that's true. But just because you're doing some breathing doesn't mean you're breathing really effectively, efficiently into the level you could be, because it plays into every aspect of your life. And it's such, like you said, it's priceless. It's such a source of internal power that transcends every aspect of everybody's life. So,
yes,
I talk about this concept of breath-initiated movement. So, and it's probably known by a lot of other things too, but that's what I use to describe it, where every action you're going to do is initiated by the breath. And I know that you teach from the first time someone comes in to learn jiu-jitsu, just taking a step forward and using the breath as a step. So that, even on that fundamental level, I think that's amazing for starting that whole process.
Yes, because motion, like for example, if you breathe on the top of your lungs like you're born to do and you normally do without knowledge, that's the way you breathe. When you say inhale, you're gonna bring the air to the chest, and that's exactly a very big mistake. You should bring the air to the back of your belly. It's like the lower part of your lungs. It's like, and the lower part is like below the rib cage, like in the middle to the bottom part of the rib cage. So when you start to move in that part and become more efficient in changing the airways and take advantage of the oxygen, you feel like you have an extra power which rules yourself in many different ways. For example, you can be in a very normal day in your life and open the computer and get an email, and that email will hit you in a very negative way. It's the worst thing you want to learn. It's the worst thing you want to hear, and that's really upset you, put you out of control. And at that point, if you not know how to deal with that kind of emotion, that kind of negative feeling, can stay with you for the whole day, if not even longer. But if you know how to clean this based on the movements of the breathing system and the capacity for you to connect this with the positive mindset you're able to clear that thought and allow this to become part of your archives, not exactly present on your emotions, on your daily situation. So you can take this from your daily activity and put on a shelf until the point you want to reassess that. So you can clear your mind from negative thoughts, from anxiety, from panicking, from any kind of disturbance you have. So breathing can really act in your mindset, in your heart, in a very special way to bring you to the level of peace and enlightenment and calmness and emotional control and capacity to bring your heartbeat low. So whatever you need from the heart perspective or from the mental perspective, you can achieve much quicker and easier if you know how to breathe.
Agreed. In fact, if you get that email or if you have something stressful and you're looking at a computer, just for example, chances are you'll find that you start holding your breath without knowing it and you stop breathing. So using your breath, first of all, becoming aware when you do that, because it's a tendency for a lot of people whenever they get under any kind of stress or experience it to start holding their breath or breathing really shallow and fast. So becoming aware and then resetting by consciously slowing that down and taking fuller breaths, amazing.
Yes, definitely.
And a lot of people don't realize you can use it for relaxation or energizing, right? Tell us the difference in there.
And is what is interesting about it is if you tell about somebody like, okay, start to breathe, they will think about the inhale as a main activity for the breathing system. So if I need to breathe, inhale and then exhale. And that's the opposite of what's supposed to be. Because the breathing system needs to contract to become stronger. And the strengthening of the contraction on the breathing system is not on the inhale. The inhale is just letting go. If you're making a curl for your biceps and you curl up and you relax down and you curl up, when you curl the biceps, you're strengthening the biceps muscle. When you contract, the contraction for the breathing system is not on the inhale, it's in the exhale. So for me, the most important thing in the breathing is how much air, bad air, I can take out of my system, because the good air coming naturally. So my focus is because when I relax, the air comes in. So my concern, different than a lot of people, is not exactly inhale, is exhale, because more efficient my exhale is, more natural and strong my inhale becomes. And people don't think too much about that, and they start to thinking about, oh, I need to bring my air in. And it's not exactly that. What you need to do to become stronger in your breathing system is to exhale efficiently, to take the bad gas out of you. Because if you choke yourself and you pass out, soon you pass out and you let go of the choke, you naturally inhale. It's like the relaxed movement is inhale. So you're never going to die by choking yourself. You can pass out, but soon you lose the pressure on the choke. You naturally start to inhale again. So the inhale aspect is not exactly what you need to be focused about. The exhale, the strengthening of the diaphragm, the strengthening to contract your muscles to take the bad gas out of you, that's the key for a very effective breathing under pressure.
That's great. That's really great. Lots of wonderful insight. I could literally talk to you about this all day, but we'll move on. But one last question about this, just if you had advice for people, someone who's going into a competition or something like that, what breath-related advice do you have as for specifically what could they do before a match?
I think, of course, breathing exercises are always good for you. But visualization is the most important part, I guess, for competition, because you have to, you start to do in your game, you start to knowing what you're going for, you start to knowing to think about competition. You have to think about opponents, different styles, different positions, and you have to think about making an easy fight because the guy make a mistake so you can win in a few seconds. Make a hard fight because the guy know what you want. They start to installing on you, and you start to become strategically correct to break the grips and evolve your position. So, in other words, you have to live the experience before in your mind maybe 1,000 times, and start to realizing, if this happened, I will do this. If this, so you start to getting experience, even though before it happened, somehow you're familiar with the outcome, and you realize you can transform the outcome if you're able to be present. So you have to become comfortable with the situation. So in order to do that, you have to make visualizations, how my strategy is going to work here and there. And at the moment you're going to compete, after all this being done, exercise, practice, visualization, you get into the moment where you free from your thoughts. You have to achieve empty mind, to allow yourself to be present in the fight. When you grab somebody, you're going to give anything and capture anything, any opportunities you have. So it's not about planning what you're going to do. It's about be capable to follow up with the sequence. So I always try to keep myself calm enough and open enough to just think before the fight. I will give you nothing, and whatever you give me, I'm going to take it. So just seeking for the opportunity. Something I love to do too also in my visualizations, and it is always like to see myself in a clear savanna, like when I close my eyes, I see the African savanna. And then I look one side, I see a zebra. I see another side, I see a gazelle. And that's pretty much the mindset I have, because in order for me to be interested by a zebra, I have to be a lion. I have to be a killer. So I was putting myself in a position where whatever I'm going to see on the other side, I'm not going to see another lion. I'm not going to see another. I will see a gazelle waiting for the moment to be killed. It's just about being superior in my mindset, being superior in my techniques, and achieve my goal. So for me, I was winning the fight before it started. I was never afraid or in doubts. I was just seeking for the opportunity to make the kill. And that's always helped me a lot.
I love it. I love it. So let's change gears just a little bit, Master Rickson. I'm curious to know, was there ever a time when you wanted to do something else besides fighting? In other words, if you hadn't been the leader and champion of the family and dedicated to upholding the family name, what other path might you have taken?
Oh, man. I feel like everything in my life was subject to change, but my goal was jiu-jitsu. But I always loved music. I always loved animals. I always loved surfing. So I keep my life focused on jiu-jitsu, but with my passions divided between horses, dogs, animals in general, and living in the countryside, dealing with plants and trees and fruits and having a natural lifestyle, rivers, oceans, waves, nature, the elements of the impact. So all this I've been very attracted from day one. But jiu-jitsu has always been on the central aspect of my life. Being a Gracie, representing the family, was always been the major goals. If I did not have this for any reason, I may gonna be involved with some kind of, maybe either music, some kind of artistic thing, or maybe dealing with animals. Not animals to kill, like cows for killing, but horses for like racing horses or breeding horses or dogs. I love animals, and I love my relationship with animals because it's very honest, it's very clear. You know, I was always passionate about, but I never put a second thought in thinking about this because it was never happened. I was just jiu-jitsu full force all my life.
You never had that luxury of really entertaining another path, right? Because
Yes.
Your course was set. And yeah, about animals, man, I totally agree with you. There's something amazing and special about animals. They really show us unconditional love, especially with pets like dogs and stuff like that. But horses, all kinds of animals, there's just something magical about being involved in them. And your dad shared that love for animals as well, right?
Yes, he's a character. He loves animals all his life.
Awesome.
More than me, I guess.
All right. Do you feel like you have failed at anything in your life, Master Rickson, or was there a time in your life when you felt like you failed at something?
I didn't understand your question.
Do you feel now like you have failed at anything in your life, or if you don't feel that way now, was there a time in your life that you felt like you failed at something?
I did things which I'm not proud of it. I did things to prove myself for others. I could be able to do this or that. So I make mistakes in my life which I'm not going to repeat ever. For how many $1 million you want to offer me, I'm not going to redo it. But I don't regret to have done, because that gives me the experience I have today to live my life. So my failures are just enlightenment for my future. So I using my mistakes in order to enlighten myself, to grow, to be proud of myself somehow. So I feel like nothing really I could change in terms of, and I feel like depending how you have your mindset process in terms of being positive with the outcome, you know, I always be very positive. I never saw my life as oh my God, now I'm going to do what? I make a mistake. It was never like this. I always try to have a little strategy before I do things. I always try to believe was doing has a good reason to be done. And eventually I may say, oh, it was not exactly what I expect, was not too good. But I use that as on my favor to learn and to reset myself somehow. So I pretty much live my life in a very high standards in terms of what I expect for me to do things and how I have dealing with the situations rose in front of me. So I'm very proud of how I deal things in my life.
Yeah, you know, everybody that's human, which is all of us, makes mistakes or has failures. But like I think you said earlier, it's what you do when you lose or when you make a mistake or have a failure. It's what do you do from there? Can you learn from it? Can you use it to move forward and turn it into a positive in some way? Let's turn that around. And what do you feel is your greatest accomplishment in your life? And what would you like your legacy to be?
Oh, man.
That's a big one, right?
My great accomplishment in my life is just to try to do my best in everything. I'm very perfectionist. I'm very passionate about things that I do. And, you know, holding the legacy, holding the jiu-jitsu in high standards the way I did, and try to still passing jiu-jitsu along with the highest level of intelligence and sophistication techniques to be able to appeal for everyone in terms of adding strength, adding knowledge, adding peaceful and spiritual warrior guidance for everyone who's being touched by Jiu-Jitsu. So I feel like Jiu-Jitsu is a great tool, and the fact I'm being dedicating my life was just, you know, something which make me very happy and very proud, and pretty much it. It's nothing, you know. I don't see my life as a point where I achieve or something I have done. I still do, and I'm still evolving. My Jiu-Jitsu still, I'm still modifying my Jiu-Jitsu to be more accessible for people who is not exactly fighters or competitors. So my motion is still evolving. My passion for Jiu-Jitsu is still here, and my mission is still to be accomplished in terms of what I vision for myself. So I'm still ongoing, and a very positive and creative mind should just bring more achievements to my career in terms of bringing Jiu-Jitsu, accessible Jiu-Jitsu to others.
That's great. And I would certainly say that's a huge accomplishment in your life. It's not only being one of the best representatives of Jiu-Jitsu in the world and modeling that, but impacting so many lives and showing the value that Jiu-Jitsu can bring into people's lives. So I think you've certainly done that on an amazingly high level.
Thank you, my friend.
Yes, sir. You also hit on in the book about the value of cooperative versus hostile environment for teaching and learning Jiu-Jitsu. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah. I mean, we all need Jiu-Jitsu. That's no questions about. But for some cases, some instructors, they coming from a competitive background, and they pretty much trying to make their students also competitors. And in that process, an average for any Jiu-Jitsu academy is for every 10 new students the academy receives, 8 will leave in less than 6 months. Because they cannot handle the pressure, sometimes competition, toughness, pushing here and pulling there, and hurting and scratching and twisting and crooking and ice and physiotherapy is too much for them, and they quit. And I feel like a comprehensive academy supposed to give a more solid foundations for the practitioner, even before he starts to become a competitor or struggle in Jiu-Jitsu. I think we all need to learn and eventually be involved with struggle. But for maybe 8 out of 10, they need more developments of their essence, their ability to understand where the invisible Jiu-Jitsu plays, how to position, how to angle, how to breathe, how to be comfortable in positions, how to use the science of the techniques and leverage and timing and connection. So it's a lot of tools for it to be used and to be learned, regardless the opponent, regardless the competitiveness, regardless the disappointments and the frustrations a competition aspect can bring to you if you add to your life this too soon. I think we all should compete at one point, but a lot of people need much more from Jiu-Jitsu than learning how to compete. They have to learn how to position, and they start to believe in their angles and positions and base. And so I feel like Jiu-Jitsu, especially nowadays, which for me, people become dehumanized because technology, robotics, internet, they dehumanizing people. People start to live in a cloud. They start to live with their best pictures in social media, with their best phrases. And sometimes they're not even capable to interact with others, shake hands, look in the eye, hug. So you see youngsters today with 13 from 10 years old and older spend maybe half of the day in the room if they need it, to spend time with the social media, internet, and things. So they start to isolate themselves and live in a bubble. And I feel like just for the sake of humanizing people, Jiu-Jitsu plays a huge role in terms of give you the sense of touch, the sense of breathing, the sense of reflex of changes, and elaborates timing and deflections. So even though it is just for the sake of humanizing you, Jiu-Jitsu can bring and add a lot of positive aspects in your life. So I don't think through competition or to engage the student too soon in this kind of hostile environment of passing a guard and try to choke and get choked and pop your ear. So this can be very nice for some people who are competitors in their essence. But I did realize with my experience, that's part of 5% of the community loves to fight, don't mind to put ice, don't mind to physiotherapy, don't mind the pain. They want to punish the guy next day. They want to beg for more. So this is a very special group of tough guys who I admire, but they don't need jiu-jitsu as much the shy ones, the introverted people, the people who are very, very much not confident in their minds to achieve success in their careers or in their endeavors. So when I teach jiu-jitsu for somebody, I don't vision them jiu-jitsu champions. I vision them potentializing their knowledge about themselves to be able to act in life using somehow martial arts to excel.
I totally agree. I think the competition certainly has a place, and there are that percent, like you said, that kind of thrive on that, and they should be able to certainly do that, push it to the max and go as far as they can with it. But for the great majority, the everyday person, they're going to benefit so much more by, starting in a cooperative environment, because if it's too stressful at first, it's harder to learn. So more of a relaxed, cooperative environment. And then as they get more comfortable and they get more confident, yes, put a little more pressure on it when they're ready. And then that's how you grow, with some pressure, but when you're ready to take on that pressure.
Yes, and that sometimes can take years, and go in your own place. And that doesn't mean to the point they want to handle pressure, they already grow a lot. They grow already 500% on top of they was. So this growth is already a huge progress for the guy. Even though he say, okay, you know what, Rickson, after 3 years training with you and you teach me everything, I feel like I don't like to compete. I don't like the hustle. Yes. I don't like the violence. Said, okay, you don't have to compete. Just keep sharpening your elements, improving your timing, improving your level, getting confidence to handle a situation. And that's pretty much where you need jiu-jitsu in your life. You don't have to stress yourself to practice jiu-jitsu. You have to allow jiu-jitsu to give you peace of mind and comfort.
Absolutely. You talk a little bit also about, in Japanese, I think the way you say it is ichiwan, ichigo. It means savoring the moment.
Yes.
So you talk a little bit about that, of kind of just savoring that moment and fully being present and appreciating the moments that you're in. Can you elaborate a little bit on what that means in your life?
Yes, I feel like life, you can live the life regretting, suffering from the past, from the bad experience. You can live your life expecting, dreaming, but those two ways are wrong because you're not present in the present moment. You're not living the life today, now, feeling, this speech. I'm talking to you, I'm focused on that. That's what I'm concerned now. I'm not focused about anything else. So, and that's supposed to be everything in life. You're supposed to live the moment in a very special way, trying to add to that moment your potential to be creative, to be positive, to be essentially productive in terms of making that moment the most productive moment you can make. So I feel like life has to be lived in your own position. So you don't have to expect things from others, be disappointed with situations. You have to immediately digest the information you get from wherever your subjects are, and digest that and make this positive for you. And wherever you're not accomplished, is already resolved itself. Let's try something else. And wherever is need to be accomplished, let's strategize. Let's do the best we can do to complete that, to conquer that. So for me, life is very simple in terms of I put responsibility on my life. My responsibility goes and things I can make a difference. Wherever I cannot touch in terms of make changes or add something or improve something, I let it go and not exactly something I have to be concerned about it.
Very good. Very good. So I'd like to know your thoughts and how you feel about modern BJJ, what modern jiu-jitsu or sportive jiu-jitsu has evolved to. I know it's definitely very different than when back in the day. So what are your thoughts about how it is these days?
I think now jiu-jitsu becomes a sport activity. And a lot of practitioners of jiu-jitsu today, they're very good in foot locks, arm locks, leg locks, or whatever, sweeps, berimbolos, grab lapels and things. But the objectivity of the game was just for 5 minutes or for 10 minutes, get points, advance. So sometimes people now teach jiu-jitsu based on the game. And that's pretty much not exactly appeals to me, because jiu-jitsu for me transcends the mat area, transcends the rules, transcends the gi, transcends the legal moves. I have to have jiu-jitsu in my life to support me on the predictable and the unpredictable moves. So I have to be sharp in my self-defense. I have to be strategical to know I should not go here or I should not go there to don't harm myself or to don't put my family at risk. So strategy, visualization, real thinking. I should be comfortable on the guard, not only if the guy try to pass my guard, but I also should be comfortable if the guy try to punch me in the face. And I see a lot of black belts today who has no idea of how to present themselves, how to put themselves in a comfortable situation against punches or kicks or a freestyle fight. So I see the change of the martial arts entity of jiu-jitsu to a sportive element of jiu-jitsu. So it becomes very tough. I have a lot of respect for the athletes and the achievements and what they can accomplish today, the ability, the movements. I admire this in a sense of the ability and the training they had to achieve that. But they lost a lot of sense of martial arts. You know, they don't think as a martial artist anymore. They think more as an athlete, high-performance athlete. So I feel like jiu-jitsu has to be more understandable as a whole of the importance of self-defense. The importance is to practice and take sometimes the rules out of the equation and expect the unexpected and be comfortable with something who can surprise you. And that's pretty much my line of jiu-jitsu, is be able to capitalize on the mistakes and be creative and be able to not be surprised as often.
Yes, you know, it made me think of something that Master Sauer said is, you know, back when competition was really started, way back in the day, everybody else knew self-defense jiu-jitsu. It wasn't, nobody learned jiu-jitsu just for competition. It was, hey, everybody has these skills for self-defense, and now what's another way we can start kind of playing with it and challenging each other a bit? And then it started developing from there, of course, into a very different thing in modern times. But yeah, it's interesting. A couple more questions, sir, and I'll let you go. I know your time is very valuable, and I appreciate it. So when you're thinking about life and life in general, what inspires you?
I feel like life is an experience. And in that experience, you have to take advantage. And on that advantage, you have to favor others. You have to be at service. Life without service is meaningful. It's not meaningful. So I believe that's a process for me which make me feel like on top of my game is because my primal motivation today is to keep at service, you know, and try to give whatever I have of my best elements to help others to just see life differently, to live better, comfortable lives, and more like with goals more achievable based on this kind of elements of strengthening your soul, strengthening your mind, strengthening your body. So for me, life is just a process which lead you from being learning to getting yourself together and knowing, and then to process the serving aspect of you, which allowed you to be able to receive goods from nature. Because if you just give, you become weak. If you just receive, you become weak. The perfect cycle is just giving and receiving good energy. And in order for me to feel good about receiving love, admiration, whatever I get from everybody, I have to be able to also give myself and be able to equalize that kind of motion, to go back and forth in a very natural way.
Love it. Love it. So you've lived a full and interesting life, and you've got a lot more life to go. What's next for you, Master Rickson? What's next in your life?
Oh, my motivation now is to create a protocol to help people who needs the most and they don't want to fight. Because for me, in the past, was always about winning, fight for winning. Right now, based on my real aspect of how I feel my body, my strategy changed to win without a fight. So I still breathing properly. I still having positive mindsets. I still have angles and leverage and protocol to believe on myself. But I don't want to fight nobody. I want to win without a fight. And that can cope, my ideas today can cope with 90% of the people who cannot achieve Jiu-Jitsu as an athletic sport, but they can learn Jiu-Jitsu from a soft perspective to learn very visible powers, from breathing to leverage to invisible power in terms of angles and connections and bays. And once you start to absorb that knowledge, you're gonna feel, okay, I'm not a fighter, but I have a chance here. By knowing that with precision, I have a chance to survive. I have a chance to become better. So my goal now is to bring this Jiu-Jitsu and the most practical and easier way to assess people who are not interested in fighting, but they need desperately some tools to become spiritual warriors.
That's great. I love hearing that. And much respect and props to you, because, again, you've already impacted so many lives, but at this point in your life, sounds like your mission is really spreading it to those that don't really want to fight, but how Jiu-Jitsu can enhance their life in general in all aspects. So, love that.
Yes. And I'm working on my second book on that. It's going to be a instructional book to present to the community the ability for you to become a spiritual warrior and use all the invisible tools I've been using all my life.
Wonderful. That sounds really great. Can't wait.
Yes.
Are you still doing seminars these days?
Not after COVID. I haven't traveled too much. I've been working too much in my platform, Rickson.academy, to teach through the internet. But I haven't given too many seminars.
Well, let me know when you're open to that, because I'd love to bring you over to North Carolina sometime. It will
be my pleasure, brother.
All right. Well, listen, thank you so much for
my pleasure, man.
Sitting down with me and talking. It's been an honor and a pleasure, and I really appreciate you and all that you've done for Jiu-Jitsu. You're a great role model and an inspiration, sir. So thank you so much.
Thank you, my brother. God bless. Talk to you soon, all right?
Okay. Thank you, brother. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, really enjoyed that conversation with Master Rickson. What an honor and privilege for me to be able to talk to him and get his insights and thoughts and perspectives. So really grateful for that opportunity. And special thanks to my friend Alan Manganello for helping set this up. I did mention trying to bring him into North Carolina sometime this year, hopefully. And just like we were talking about in the episode, how important breathing is, make sure you check out the Breathing for BJJ program. It has been a complete life changer for me, and I know it can have the same impact for you. It focuses on a biomechanical approach to strengthening your breathing muscles, increasing your functional capacity to breathe, which translates to much better performance on the mat and a lot more joy in your jiu-jitsu. You can find out more at www.breathingforbjj.com. Okay, up next is the Make a Difference, Make an Impact segment.
When we're laying on our deathbed, you're not going to worry about how much money you had, how much power you had, how much prestige. You're going to see that that was all game, that was all an illusion. The only thing that's going to matter is the impact you had on other people's lives.
We are all on a separate journey. But the beautiful thing about our life here on this earth is at my funeral, they ain't going to talk about my success. They're going to talk about who Nick was and how Nick lived and how Nick loved and encouraged.
Success is incredibly important, but even more important than success, it's having an impact. It's knowing you haven't walked the planet in vain. It's knowing that because you've been here, you've blessed lives, you've developed people, and you have made the world a better place.
The effect you have on others is the most valuable currency there is. Everything you gain in life will rot and fall apart. And all that will be left of you is what was in your heart.
Life is a mirror. And life gives us not what we want. Life gives us who we are. When you were born, you cried while the world rejoiced. Live your life in such a way that when you die, the world cries while you rejoice.
And that's going to do it for this edition of the show. As always, I thank you for listening. Hope you're enjoying the show. If you feel like you're benefiting from the show and want to show your support, you can support us on our Patreon page, and a link in the show notes. Please like and follow us on social media and help us spread the word by reposting our posts and telling others about the show. You can leave comments on the website at www.graciejujitsurocks.com. You can also go to iTunes and leave comments, as well as rate the show, and we would appreciate a 5-star rating, which helps us with our standing in iTunes. You can also leave comments on our YouTube channel. If you have suggestions for the show, please don't hesitate to give those. We always like feedback and suggestions. Okay, that's going to do it. So until next time, this is Marty Josie, and I'll see you on the mat.